Okay. Here we go. This is a story called The Ledge by Stephen King. And I read it a couple days ago, and I want to tell it to you. Okay, here we go. So, once upon a time, a man named Stan Norris, who is a professional tennis player, finds himself in a horrible, precarious position. He knew that the situation he was going into was going to be risky from the offset, but he couldn't help but enter the situation because he's a competitor and he felt confident that he could win. However, his competition wasn't just any schmuck. This was a guy, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. I think we're just going to call him Cresson. The last name is Cresson. So let me tell you a little bit more about the situation. Norris, the professional tennis player, has done something that Cresson cannot forgive. Norris, the professional tennis player, has fallen in love and had an affair with Cresson's wife. Now, normally, this is a horrible, terrible situation for Cresson. The wife and Norris are romantically in love, and they have no regrets. However, Cresson wants to make sure they do have regrets. And Cresson has the power to do so. You see, Cresson is actually an extremely powerful crime lord. Now, Norris knew this when he started to fall in love with Cresson's wife, and he unwisely pursued the relationship because he just loved her so much. The wife's name, I'm not even sure the story says it. I'm sure it does, but we're going to call her Susie. Because I can't remember. I'm horrible with names. Susie warns Norris, "My husband is an extremely powerful, embittered man. He's not just going to let us go. He's going to want to make sure that we're unhappy." But Norris has to go because Cresson is a crime lord. And he knows that if he doesn't settle things between Cresson before running off with Susie, Cresson's never going to let them be. In fact, he might even kill them. So Norris gets an invitation from Cresson saying, "Hey, before you run off with my wife, let's get the story started. Before you run off with my wife, who I know you're having an affair with, come visit me in my penthouse suite. It's the top floor of this huge skyscraper in New York City." Because he's super wealthy. And he says, "Hey, come here, let's talk about this like men, and I think you'll appreciate the conversation." So Norris goes, even though Susie is convinced it's a trap. She says, "Don't go. What are you doing? You're walking right into his hands. This is a crime lord for crying out loud. What are you doing?" And Norris, being ever the competitor, says, "I got this. Don't worry about it." And so he goes. Let's see if that was a good decision. Norris enters into the penthouse suite and it's so ornate. He walks in out of these golden elevator doors. The entire penthouse suite is carpeted in tacky orange shag carpet like they had in the 70s. There's leather chairs left and right. Everything is in some kind of animal print skin. There's leopard skin and cheetah skin. And sitting behind, of course, a big glass desk, smoking a cigar, is an aging 50-year-old, out of shape, balding Cresson. And he looks exactly the way you would imagine him to look. And he takes his big cigar out of his mouth, and he says, "Norris, so glad you could join me. Come on over here, let's talk." And Norris has a plan based on what Susie has kind of told him about Cresson, is not really engage. Just hear what he has to say and then get out of there. Because he wants to be safe with Susie. He wants to live a life with Susie. And even though Susie's Crescen's wife, he's hoping that they can have this conversation and kind of break ties and get out of there. And Crescent says, Norris, let's get right to business. I know that you're seeing my wife, Susie. And he says, it doesn't bother me as much as I think you think it would bother me. In fact, I hate her. She's a horrible person, the kind of person who would cheat. And I want you to know, Norris, that I'm not a cheater. And, but I am a gambling man. And before you go off with my wife, I thought you'd be interested in hearing through a little wager I have for you. Now, Norris knows that he shouldn't bite. He shouldn't take the bait here. But his emotions are getting riled up because Crescent is speaking derogatorily about Susie. And so Norris says, hey, she didn't just cheat because she's a bad person. You never loved her. You always abused her. You're emotionally manipulative. You're a horrible person. And she ran away with me because I actually love her. And I want you to let us alone. And Crescent says, who am I to stop true love? You know? And I appreciate it, but you're not listening to me. I said you could go, but you have to listen through my wager. And in fact, I want to make it interesting. You see this here telephone? And on the desk is a golden telephone. And he says, at 10 p.m., right now it's 9:55. At 10 p.m., I'm going to pick up this telephone. And I'm going to call my boy Mikey. Now, Mikey is in a parking garage 5 miles away from here where you parked your car, Norris. You parked your car. I know where it is. And unfortunately for you, you happen to leave a bag of heroin inside your car. And I just so happen to know that the police, once I make this phone call, will find their way to your car and bust you. And I finally happen to know that you've done time before. 3 months, huh? Before your big tennis career. Now, finding a little bag of heroin, which I wouldn't know anything about, I think that could get you upwards of 20 years there, Norris. Now, Norris is quiet during this entire part. And he's realizing that Susie's warning was wise. That Crescent isn't just going to let him go for nothing. And so Norris hears all this and says, What are you just going to set me up for drugs? You're going to tell me you're going to let me go and then just frame me? You know, what do I got to do here? And Crescent smiles and he says, I think I finally have captured your attention. Let me make this first phone call so I can delay my boy Mikey. And then I'm going to lay out the wager. Picks up the phone. Hey, Mikey. We're going through with plan A. All right, boss. That's everything. Okay, Norris. At 10:05, if I don't call Mikey, he's going to call the police. And the heroin bust is going to go through. And you're going to find yourself with 20 years in prison. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. I don't deal with drugs. But you happen to. And that's really a crime. And we need our American justice system to punish criminals. However, if you say yes to my wager, I'll pick up the phone again before 10:05. I'll tell my boy Mikey to do you a favor and remove the heroin out of your car. Okay, I'm listening. What's the wager? What's this wager you keep on going on about, Crescent? I'm dying of suspense here. All right, man? What's it gonna be? Okay? Let me go with Susie. Just let me get out of here. Whatever stupid bet you want to do, What is it? And Crescent says, Norris, stop being so impatient, okay? You've got your whole life ahead of you, or 20 years in prison, okay? So you better be careful, because you only got a couple more minutes to listen to me. Now, here's $100,000. Crescent throws a brown bag full of bundles of $20 bills at Norris's feet. Norris picks it up. Okay? Yeah, think of it as a honeymoon gift. I want you and Susie to be happy. Alright? You go off and you go play with this $100,000. Norris says, okay. Is the bet that I'm not going to take this? No. I don't care about the money, Norris. You want the money? Take it. You want my wife? Take her. But before you do, before I let you go out of those golden elevator doors, you have to do one thing for me. And Norris says, okay, what is it? If you want to accept my wife and this money, you have to step out onto my balcony of this top floor penthouse suite in beautiful New York City, and you have to walk around the ledge of the entire skyscraper, come back around, and come back in through the balcony. And Norris stares at Crescent and says, you're crazy. You're absolutely insane. What are you talking about? You want me to step outside on a skyscraper and walk around the building? That's what I said. You heard me perfectly well. And I'll tell you, Crescent. I'm going to tell you, Norris. I've had 6 other men have this bet. I've tried to give them money. I let them know I go free. All they gotta do is walk around the outside of this here building. None of them have made it. Not a single one. 3 of them professional athletes. Just like yourself. So, it's a tough wager. I know, but it's that of 20 years in the clink. You know what I'm saying? Because it's 10:03. So what are we going to do here? You gonna accept the wager? Take the money? Take the wife? Walk around the building? Or are you going to go to prison? The choice is yours. I don't even need a gun. What do you think, Norris? And Norris can't believe it. Susie warned him, and they walked right into a trap. In fact, Susie was so paranoid that she didn't even come within 50 miles of New York City. You see, Norris was adamant that he sees Crescent before he goes. He couldn't shake it. He was like, he's going to chase us the rest of our lives. He's going to send some sort of hitman or something. This guy's a crime lord. We got to settle things before we go. But Susie was hearing none of it. She just wanted to run away. So they had this clever situation where they separated, and Susie tried to be as discreet and as under the radar as possible, and Norris just drove with his car, parked in a parking garage 5 miles away, and went up to Crescent's. But obviously, Crescent knew where he was. He just hopes that Crescent doesn't know where Susie is, because he has no idea what's going to happen, you know. And he starts to think about it, and he's like, okay, well, I don't want to spend 20 years in prison. That's obvious. But this psycho wants me to walk around the edge of a skyscraper. And before making any decisions, he notices that it's 10:04. Norris says, okay, let me just actually see what you're talking about, this challenge here. Because Norris is kind of thinking, he's a tennis player. He's got quick ankles. He's got really strong muscles and, tendons all the way down his legs and his ankles into his feet. He actually feels pretty confident that he's stable on his legs. So Crescent says, all right, wait a minute. I'm just going to assume you're accepting this bet, so let me call my boy Mikey. Hey, Mikey, we're going forward. Next phase of plan A. All right? Thanks. All right. My boy Mikey has removed the heroin from your car. Now, you don't step outside, he's going to put it back and make that phone call to the police. So let's do this. He opens up a glass door of the balcony to the outside, and immediately a huge gust of wind, freezing cold, because it's like January in New York City, comes billowing into the room, blowing back Norris's hair. And Norris steps outside onto this tiny gated balcony. And he takes a step forward and kind of looks down, and he sees that they are wildly high up into the air. I mean, they're probably 70, 80 stories. This is the taller of the New York skyscrapers. Crescent is no schmuck. He's made a lot of money doing this crime stuff. In fact, the cars look so small, they almost look like little matchbox cars. The people, they look like dots, ants. Oh, Nora steps back from the edge, which is just a little iron bar, a little iron gate. You know, has that little flower design, latticed all the way through, but it's just black iron separating him from a huge drop. And Crescent says, "Oh, don't worry about the view. It's beautiful. I love it from inside. You're going to walk around the outside. Here, let me show you. There's a ledge. I'm not crazy. This is possible. All right? Here, look here." He allows Norris to come to the side, and he shows him the edge of the building. So, you know, there's that gated square balcony area. And just right over the gate, Norris looks down, and there's a tiny concrete ledge that's jutting out, and it goes all the way around the edge of this big rectangular skyscraper that's mostly made of glass, but there is a little concrete ledge, and it's about 5 inches long. I don't know, 5 inches, like kind of the size maybe like your phone, maybe a little bit smaller. It's hard to say. And that's how much this thing juts out. And Crescent says, "There it is. There's the ledge. All right? Now, a lot of the guys who've done this before, they can make it pretty far. But they don't make it the whole way. What can I say? Watch out for the wind, by the way, Norris. It is a windy day. In fact, I've got a wind gauge up here." And Norris looks up, and he does see that Crescent has put on a little wind gauge, and it is just spinning like crazy. It is like a little mini tornado. It is just whirling, because it is so windy. And Norris starts to feel like he might need to back out of the bed. This is crazy. Okay, he's gonna die. This is a whole nother level of insane that Crescent is putting him through. But then he remembers Susie. And then he remembers prison. And he does not want to go back there. And he's thinking, 20 years or death? 20 years in prison or death? And somewhere deep in the back of his mind, he also kind of realizes, did he really believe that Crescent is going to let him go if he chose prison? Does he really believe that after writing 20 years of letters back and forth to Susie, that Crescent would forgive Susie and let her go? No. This is never going to end. This Crescent, he's a psycho. And the only way to beat him is to win this bet. Now, before Norris stepped out onto the edge, he turns to Chris and he says, "All right, I'm going to do it. But I got to know before I go, are you a Welsher?" And Crescent gets really, really angry. And he says, "Norris, I never Welsh. I always keep my word." "Yeah, well, you better, because if I make it all the way around this building and you don't let me go, and you don't give me that 100,000, and you don't let me have that happy life, you're going to pay for it." "Oh, yeah, all right, well, I don't know why you're even talking about it, because I never Welsh. I'm a man of my word. Now be a man of yours. Get on this ledge. It's getting cold out here. And I've only got this robe. So, let's up to it." Norris takes a deep breath. And he quickly hops over the ledge and lands right onto the tiny concrete walkway that is only 5 inches long. He starts to kind of bounce on it, still holding the iron balcony area. And Crescent kind of smiles and looks at him. Yeah, just test it out. It's good. There's no cracks or anything. It's actually stable. It's just a ledge. You just gotta walk around. I don't see what the big deal is. Okay? Like I said, I'm gonna go inside. But first, I gotta make sure you let go of this balcony and actually get started. So, get started, I said. Norris takes his time. He kind of takes one hand off of the balcony and he puts it on the glass, and it is freezing cold. It feels like the frozen over water of a lake, like the ice. And he slowly lets go of his other hand and starts to scoot along the ledge, just slowly sliding an inch by an inch. Crescent nods approvingly, and the man started. Best of luck. And he shuts the glass door. The only thing Norris can hear now is the wind. It blows through his hair, blows around his ears, and he's just focused on breathing and sliding. It only takes him about half an hour to make it past the first little part. And he makes it to his first corner. And as he turns, he kind of turns his head to look back at the balcony, and it seems really far. But he's made it probably about a good 15 feet. It's the corner that he's worried about. You see, right at the edge of the corner, he sticks out his hand a little bit, and the wind, the crosswind, is just brutal. However, Norris notices, taking his deep breaths, trying to be calm, that as he sticks his hand out, he can feel it kind of blow back. But occasionally, there's a break in the wind, and he just needs to time his turn to get it on one of the slow parts of the break. Otherwise, he fears he's going to get blown off the sledge. So he just waits, and he waits, and he waits. And he realizes with a sinking realization that the wind really might not ever die down. So he thinks of Susie, and he goes, and he slowly turns the corner. The wind hits his body, bam, and for one horrifying, soul-rending split second, he feels his hands come off the icy glass and kind of rotate for a second, and he rebalances and just slams forward. He breathes so hard. He's straddling the corner, and with a quick motivation, he turns, and he's cleared the first corner. His legs, though, are already starting to shake. 5 inches. If he was on the ground, he remembers thinking as a kid, walking around the tennis court, balancing on the white lines, he could do the entire thing, practically closing his eyes. But you take the same challenge, 100 feet, 200, 300 more feet in the air, all of a sudden, it's not a game, and his feet feel like betraying him. The ankles and his muscles are aching, and he wants to stretch his toes, and he quickly kind of does a little tiptoe. That's the best he can do, because if he comes back down too fast and leans back, he'll fall, and that's a long fall. So instead of wasting energy, Norris decides to keep going. He just slowly starts to slide, and the wind is a lot more powerful on this side, so he's going even a little bit slower, and it's taking him twice as long to get over this side. And he gets about halfway, and he feels like he's going to make it, when all of a sudden, to his horror, he feels a sharp pain in his right ankle. And he goes, ah, and he nearly loses his balance. He kind of stops, and he freezes and tries to get as close to the wall as possible, but the pain won't go away. There's a sharp, piercing, pecking sort of pain. And he says, what? And he slowly, puts his cheek against the wall and looks down. There's a fat, diseased New York pigeon pecking at his right ankle. There's a tiny little bird's nest right underneath Norris that he hasn't really noticed. And all the little birds have gotten out of the nest and are flocking around this, mommy bird who is angrily pecking at Norris's ankle. Norris is mortified. He says, "Hey, get out of here. Come on, go." And he's trying not to make too much movement so he doesn't fall off the ledge. But the pigeon, this is a New York pigeon. He's not going anywhere. Okay? This New York pigeon, she's a tough cookie. And she keeps on just pecking. And all of a sudden he can feel blood seeping through his sock. So he says the only thing, he tries to kind of jerk at her, but he almost loses his balance again. So he stops, and instead he just decides to power through. So he keeps going. And as he's going around this ledge, this bird is just eating his foot, his ankle, like a chicken drumstick, pecking. He feels, even though he knows it's impossible, like the bird is almost getting to the white, raw bone of his ankle. The ball of his foot is just getting relentlessly attacked, and he can barely take it. He's gritting his teeth. He feels like he's going insane. What is this challenge? And he foolishly takes the next corner a little bit faster. And he nearly falls, but he hopes that he can get rid of the stupid bird, but the bird doesn't go anywhere. But he is around the second corner, and when Nelson looks, he sees something that he can't believe. Because he's almost on the exact other side, he's made it about halfway, there happens to be another balcony. Right there. There is another black iron balcony that he slides over to, grabs gratefully with both arms, lofts himself onto the balcony, and collapses, exhausted, a heaping, breathing mass of nerves and pain and torture. He cannot believe that he made it. He made it halfway. He kind of looks up and looks inside of the opposite bedroom where this balcony is attached, and it's dark. There's no one inside. He checks the door, and it's completely locked. He even checks the glass, wondering if he could maybe break into this side and somehow escape this insane situation, but the glass is way too strong. He notices the stupid pigeon bird that's on his other side now that he's past it. It's because, it kind of flew and got bothered because he got so close to the balcony, and he couldn't help himself. He lowers himself down and just kicks this bird like a football. Just BAM! And the bird goes flying, squawking in anger, and goes back onto the other side, the second part that he had already taken care of, not to be seen again. Probably to take care of her little babies, but not to bother Nelson ever again. And, he's happy. He's like, oh. And he knows that he needs to keep going, because this isn't going to end. He can't just stay on the balcony. First of all, he'd freeze to death. Second of all, and worse, is his muscles are going to start to be too tight, and they're going to tighten up, because he's got to keep moving. He's got to keep them loose, because if he freezes up now, he's not going to make it over the second half. And he's hoping the second half isn't going to be as bad as the first half, but he doesn't know. And he just thinks, I've got to make this. I've got to make it for Susie. So, with unbelievable willpower and just a crazed sense of purpose, he makes his way back over the other side of the balcony and towards the second half of the skyscraper building. Even though his legs are completely fried, his passion to get back to Susie drives him and keeps him going. He ignores the pangs in his feet. He ignores the torture in his ankles. He makes it past the third corner easier, almost having been practiced. He thinks of all the tennis competitions that he's had as he makes his way along the third line. He goes, going slowly and steadily. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Not nearly losing his balance as much. Not nearly falling, nearly having the fear that he did at the first part. And he realizes, for the first time, that he's going to make it. The wind is this time kind of blowing against him a little bit, so he has to go even slower. He's just inching along. That bad crosswind that almost blew him on that first corner, it's now blowing, against him this way. So it's kind of like almost like pushing him along. And so he's going extra slow. And when he turns the third corner, he can see his original black iron gated latticed balcony. And he extra knows he's going to make it. But he doesn't want to mess it up at the very end here. Don't trip at the finish line. He keeps breathing. He goes a little bit further, reaches his arm slowly out, and he grabs the balcony. He's made it. He hoists himself over and collapses again. The glass door is already open, and all he can hear is a slow clap. Of course, it's the slow clap, and it's Crescent. Well. You made it. What can I say? That's an impressive feat. The first one to have done it. I'm just so thrilled and happy for you. What can I say? You won the bet. Take the money. The heroin's not going back in your car. Like I said, I'm a man of my word. However, something feels a little bit off. As much as he loves Susie, he knows he wasn't supposed to win this bet. Because in Crescent's office, there's also a bodyguard. And this bodyguard is holding a powerful black handgun and pointing it right at him. And he says to Crescent, "Yeah? You're not going to Welsh? You're going to honor this deal?" Crescent says, "Yeah, I'm going to honor it. I'm going to honor it. Now you get going with that money. However, I want you out of my sight as quickly as possible. Come on, get going." And so, almost unbelieving, he slowly picks up the brown bag of money, walks to the golden elevator, hits down. But before the elevator can arrive, Crescent says, I just thought I'd let you know one detail, though. Susie, she's dead. Norris can't believe it. He slowly turns around and says, "What?" "Yeah. I didn't think I'd mention it till now, but I told you could escape the 20 years, you could have the money, and I told you could run away and be free, but I'm not gonna let that so-called wife of mine off the hook so easy. She's dead. You don't think her hiding fooled me, did you? Oh, we found her. And she's 6 feet under. So you just go have a good life, tennis boy. But not with her. And just so you know, I never Welshed. I never said anything about her, but Norris isn't hitting it." He turns around and is slowly walking into the room. The bodyguard kind of fidgets. And Norris has an idea. He takes a bundle of 20s out of the bag. And he says, "You know what, Crescent? You're right. I guess you didn't technically Welsh. This is good money. I made it around you're letting me go. Yeah, like I said. Now what are you doing back in here, boy? You should be going back down that elevator. I don't ever want to see your face again." And Norris kind of shakes his head and says, "I know, I just, there's one more thing I have to do." And Norris, using the power of his wrists this time, his wrists that are fresh, that have not been bothered by the outside ledge walk, his powerful tennis wrists flicks the wad of money with an extremely powerful throw, sails it right into the face, bam, of the bodyguard. It hits the corner of his eye and has some weight to it. And he screams, and Norris runs up, boom, 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 and just slams his elbow into the side of the bodyguard's face, and he collapses to the ground. Norris picks up the gun that he's dropped out of his hands and just immediately, bam, kills the bodyguard. And Crescent stands up in his bathrobe and says, "Oi!" And Norris flips around and says, "Freeze. Don't move." And Crescent says, "Norris, all right, I didn't actually kill her. All right, she's alive. I swear. Okay? I just wanted to mess with you. Okay? She's not dead. She's not dead." Okay, Crescent, I believe you. I'm a reasonable man. And I think I could even let you out of here. Okay, yeah. I've got even more money. All right? I'll give you $1 million. I'll give you $5 million. It's in a Swiss bank account. I'll give you everything you need to know. Just let me out of here. No, yeah. You let me live. I'll let you live. All right, okay. Good. But first, you need to walk around the ledge of the building. And Crescent's face just drops. He snores. Be reasonable, okay? Look at me, look at you. I'm not like, hey, I'm gonna let you go. I don't Welsh on my bets. Come on, I'm giving you the same deal you gave me. No, it's different. And he cocks the gun, loads it one more time. It says, "Crescent, get on the ledge. I'll give you 1 hour. That's about how long it took me. Let's go. You know it can be done." And Crescent's like, "Oh, I can't believe..." But even though he's spitting and stammering, he has to obligatorily go to the ledge. It takes Crescent a lot longer than it took Norris to even get started. For a long time, he refused to even let go of the balcony, constantly in denial. And the only way that Norris got Crescent to keep going was just letting him know that it could be done. And that if he actually succeeded, he'd let him go. And that if he wasted time, the cold would seep into his bones and probably cause him to fall. So he better get going. So Crescent eventually lets go of the balcony and slowly slides along the first part of the first wall. However, he's not nearly as athletic as Norris. He's not nearly as skinny as Norris. And the big fat beer belly keeps on bumping against the wall as he goes along. And Norris kind of watches him. Doesn't think he's going to make it past the first corner. He's curious if he does, though. If the pigeon's still there. Walks back into the room. Kind of looks at the clock. I'll give him an hour and see what happens. An hour passes. 2 hours pass. No Crescent. However, Norris wants to take his time. He tries one of Crescent's cigars because he really wants to make sure that Crescent is gone for good. Maybe he made it to the other half side. Maybe he's lying on the other balcony, exhausted, too scared to move on. Maybe he's waiting through the night to maybe give it a chance during the day, hoping that Norris leaves. But Norris is going to stick around. He's going to make sure. Because if Crescent does make it, well, in the unlikely scenario that he does, maybe Crescent never Welsh on his bets. But Norris, he was known to Welsh once or twice. That is the story of The Ledge by Stephen King. Obviously retold by me, and with some details most likely changed. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you.